Hello, everybody.
That's great.
Good morning. My name is Sarah, and for the last 2.5 years, I've been heading up the indie community on Google Play, and it's been an awesome experience. I started as an indie myself well over 10 years ago, and it's still my favorite group of people. I'm a little bit biased with indies, so you'll probably see that come through as I talk to these two amazing humans. And this morning we talked a lot about, we had some great talks run by Googlers who, and some of our partners who were talking about improving game quality and how can you really maximize your discoverability. And we're going to actually kick off into a lot of different discussions carrying on to build on top of that. So today I have Sam and Mike, who are two indie developers and publisher, who are really experts and have seen a lot of success around user acquisition, which is something that I think a lot of indies really struggle with. Put your hand up if you struggle with user acquisition, like where to even start, what is it? It's super overwhelming. And then we also have Butterscotch Shenanigans here, which are experts around community building. So we're going to talk about those two things. It's going to be super exciting. All right, welcome guys. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
So maybe let's start with some introductions. Sam, maybe you can start, talk a little bit about yourself, your history in gaming, about your company, so forth.
Sure, yeah. So Butterscotch Shenanigans was founded about 7 years ago by me and my two brothers. And family-owned business, which is always a terrible idea, I've heard, but it's working out pretty good. And we've launched 5 games. We started on mobile, and we've recently gone more cross-platform, so our games now reach out onto other platforms as well, like Steam and console. And a big part of our strategy has been answering the question, once we somehow manage to get a player, how can we just keep that player around? So instead of worrying about user acquisition spend in terms of bringing new people in, how do we keep people with us? And that's sort of been what a lot of our focus is around community management and that sort of thing.
Cool. I'm Mike. I'm the CEO of Iron Horse Games. There's one person at Iron Horse Games, and it's me. I started the company 3 years ago. Last year, we did 11 million installs with a heavy amount of user acquisition. So do a lot of marketing myself, a lot of creative testing, and we mostly focus on idle game publishing. That's it.
Cool. So the first obvious question I want to ask you is why indie? Why did you choose to be an indie developer? I think a lot of people feel it's harder than ever to be indie, especially in mobile and increasingly on other platforms. Why did you choose this path?
Sure, I can start. It's personal and professional. So personally, I'd worked at Congregate previously and helped build up the mobile publishing business, and we'd worked with a lot of really big teams. And I wanted to get more hands-on with smaller teams and make an impact on their games, and that's been personally really satisfying. Professionally, I saw that there was a big gap in the market from a publishing perspective. From a business perspective, the way that publishing typically works, if you have success, is you build on that success. So you have a game, generates a lot of money, you market it, and then start hiring on a team to help build the game bigger, which means that subsequent games need to be bigger and bigger. And that creates the snowball effect, and then you look up after 4 years and you're publishing like 2 games a year. I never wanted to do that and felt that there was a huge opportunity for 1- and 2-person teams to really benefit from a lot of the learnings that the big team had from publishing. So that's what I set out to do and largely what I've done.
Awesome.
Yeah, so on our end, one is that we really like to make games. In the past, we'd like to make them fast. That's changed a bit. But we started doing game jams. And so that sort of creative freedom you get from just iterating over a weekend, we basically extended into how we make our games generally. So we have a really iterative design and development cycle. And then on top of that, the sort of new thing that we do at our studio is a lot of this really interesting web tech and web integration with our games. So we built our own proprietary account system called Bscotch ID, which is now transitioned into Rumpus, which is our powerful back end, as we call it. And what that allows us to do is get players into this email system, which now we have 500,000 players who have at some point bought one of our games, who we actually have their email address, and we send them emails basically once a month, let them know what's going on with the studio, as well as essentially hyping up whatever our new game is or selling merch or whatever else. So a big part of our learnings have come on that side of things. We really wanted to have the time and the space to explore that whole aspect of it and see what we could do there.
That's super cool. So Mike, I'm going to move over to you and dive into you come from gaming, you're not new to games, but being in this space of really being this one-man indie sensation, what's that been like over the last few years? What's the learning curve been like?
Yeah, so it's nice that you call me a sensation.
Yes, you are a sensation. You are sensational.
Thank you. It's been difficult and good. I think if you can probably relate to this, if you have any degree of success, you start feeling a little bit nervous that it's going to go away. So that's one element that I deal with quite a bit, especially when we have a successful business, is the feeling that it's not going to be that way forever. So you stay really scrappy. I think the most important learnings of the past 3 years have really been the need to adapt and do it quickly. When I started Iron Horse Games, about a year later, the App Store did its redesign. If anyone here is a mobile game developer, you've probably seen what the impacts of that are. And then also there have been a series of changes on Google Play where a lot of organic installs that used to kind of fall from the sky have changed how they come into your game. They're all still there, you just have to figure out a way to unlock them. For me, it was leaning really heavily into marketing and user acquisition. So when those things happen, you need to pivot and you need to do it incredibly quickly. Because otherwise you're going to wake up and you're not going to have a business. I mean, if I didn't make the changes that I made to start marketing aggressively last year, and I had done zero marketing at Iron Horse before this, I wouldn't be here today, period. The business would not exist.
Yeah, so building off of that and in reference to what we were talking about a little bit earlier is that you have really taken on head-on the concept of user acquisition and how you started from square one, you really didn't know much about it, and now you've acquired this incredible wealth of knowledge in that space. So how do you do that as an indie? Where did you even start with that?
Yeah, so credit to Congregate my time there because while I wasn't actively doing marketing myself, I was working with that team a lot and kind of getting an idea of what that looked like. For the specific way that I started doing marketing and started tackling it, the first was algorithm change rolled through Google Play. Some of my games lost installs, and a lot of the games kept them. So I looked at why the games who still had installs were continuing to get them. The answer, at least for me, was that they had a high third-party referral rate. So I was getting a lot of installs from outside of Google Play. I inferred that that meant that the algorithm might be encouraging developers to market their games. So I started marketing really conservatively to start on live games. I'd take about 30% of the projected net revenue for the month. I would reinvest that into marketing and user acquisition through sources that I was confident would have either net neutral, so I wouldn't lose any money on them, or ROI positive payback. I mean, this is not a lot of spend. We're talking like $1,000 a month. I monitor the results, and then as that started gaining success and snowballing, I developed a strategy around marketing on open beta and then marketing during launch, which is probably the most important window that you can market your game in on Google Play. So the first 30 days, when you release your game globally from open beta or pre-registration, the paid to organic ratios are insane. Like normally on a game that's live, maybe you buy one install on Google Play and you get one organic. During that launch window, you buy one install and you get 4 organics. So knowing like how to market your game and having some experience marketing your game and then aggressively marketing during that 30-day window gives you all kinds of benefits outside of just you're making money. You can also use that information to pitch the folks at Google and say, look, I've got a really good game here. I think you guys should support it.
Right, and you just scaled from there?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, on every game, we start really small in open beta. I'm predominantly spending my budgets on Facebook, Unity, Google Play AdWords, Tapjoy, and ironSource, and some ad action. Those are the big 6 from me. It's a mix of display and video ads. And then as the game's net revenue grows, we come up with a monthly budget, and then we spend that every month at either net neutral or ROI positive. And my games don't have massive ARPUs. We're talking like 50-cent CPIs for Western users. So it can be done. I do it every day. I did it this morning. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And just one last question around that. Can you tell me a little bit about, you referenced the fact that things change on the store, right? That the way that games are surfaced and what's going on behind the curtain, so to speak,
Right.
is changing, and that can be really daunting.
Right.
I think for developers of all sizes, but especially indies. So how has that been to navigate? What's sort of your outlook on that?
My outlook on it is that you guys have a business that you're optimizing and growing. So I don't begrudge any changes that happen on the store because it's something that Google's heavily invested in, and it's their right to do whatever they want with it, to grow it and change it as they see fit. The way I feel about it is that it's terrifying when users start disappearing, but there's always a signal. So I have a broad data set. I'm a publisher, so I have 15 games or more. Whenever anything changes, I dig deep to see who the winners and losers were and try and come up with a hypothesis as to why they won or lost. But typically, marketing has allowed me to weather most storms. I think if you have a consistent stream of marketing, whatever is happening with organic installs on the store, as long as it's not affecting that first 30-day window and it's not punishing us on the paid to organic ratio for live games, you can pretty much weather it. You just got to get to that point where you're reinvesting in marketing on a monthly basis.
And I want to point out and give a plug for Mike's talk tomorrow. So Mike, what can you give details if this is really interesting to you and you want to hear more and
Yep.
some really specific examples in Mike's talk tomorrow? Where can they join you tomorrow?
It's a great question. It's tomorrow.
Somewhere.
It's around
Here.
2 o'clock-ish, and it's at GDC. It's called Scrappy Marketing.
Okay.
That's the title.
probably enough information
It's the
for
title.
people to.
And it's a really good presentation. This sounds like I haven't prepared. I've prepared a lot. I just don't know the specifics on where it is.
Awesome. Okay, great.
Good time.
So let's jump over to Sam here. Thanks, Mike. So you guys have been around for a number of years now, and doing a pretty good job of weathering some like crazy storms in the indie world. So, and you've seen great success. So, like, what's your secret? How have you managed to do that?
So I think it kind of goes back to what you were talking about as far as the concept of how do you build a business that is able to weather the various changes that are happening literally all the time. So while Mike's taken more of a marketing approach, ours has been more on the community engagement side of things. So through that newsletter system, essentially the first reason we built that was because we said, okay, we can't necessarily always guarantee that Google or Apple or anybody else is going to give us a feature, right? It's never guaranteed, and also like they've got their own stuff going on. Maybe Super Mario Run launches and absorbs all of the the top spots for something, or all sorts of games come out and just start absorbing all sorts of feature spots where usually you would think you'd be in there. So we said, how can we actually robustly build a future for ourselves where we get to control at least a little bit of that launch potential, and actually do it without any marketing money. So we're heavy on the tech side. We build a lot of tools for ourselves and things like that to really optimize workflows, as well as to optimize things like these sort of marketing back channels and stuff. So for us, the answer came in the form of building this proprietary tech, which is really, it was originally built in PHP, like a really kind of hideous backend system, which is much better now, much more stable now, but allowed people to just back up their data. It's a cloud save system, right? And because our games are cross-platform, that meant that if someone played it on their tablet, on Android, and then hopped on their PC, then they could just pick up exactly where they came from. And we found our users really, really liked that, and it also gave them a reason to give us their email address. So the question then is, what do you do once you have that email address? For some reason, indies in particular really love Twitter, when Twitter has like the lowest pickup rate of almost any communication channel you could ever try to broadcast on. It's sort of like you just kind of screaming into the void a lot with hashtags. And so, I mean, we're talking, like between a 15 and 40% open rate on these emails that we're sending to people. We're sending to like, 150,000 people. And what we found over the years is that everywhere we've gone to build an audience has always ended up getting restricted. So for example, we first built an audience on Facebook, and then it became quickly clear that if we wanted to actually reach the 20,000 people that we had driven to that page to like us through our games, that we had to pay money now to reach the audience that we had curated there. And on Twitter, it was the same thing, where we couldn't quite hit our total audience pool. And so we said, okay, email looks like a good way to do this. And for some reason, it's not a tool that indies use. So as far as something it's a really, really effective tool. And yes, there's some complications with something like GDPR, but it's actually not particularly difficult. It seems really scary. And then it's really easy to walk through once you get it. So the email newslettering system. And then on top of that, we do a weekly podcast, which is just us me and my two brothers just get in a room for an hour and basically be weirdos. We talk about the games industry, we talk about the game we're working on, and then we answer community questions. And we, depending on the week, we'll have like around between 1,500 and 2,500 listeners per week. And if you talk about like the power of having your fan base listen to you talk for an hour every week, that's something that really can't be matched. And so I think cumulatively, the podcast has had over like 350,000 hours of people listening, right? And so it's allowed us to build a fan base, even start a little tiny mini convention of our own in St. Louis, where we're based in the Midwest, that people flew from Florida and drove from Texas to come see us. So it's allowed us to do a lot of these things that normally we would feel very out of reach for, and in a lot of ways weather all these changes long enough that we can pivot effectively and take advantage of whatever the new sort of shiny thing is that we're supposed to do.
So was that intentional to build your fan base around your studio brand, as opposed to, and then of course it cascades down into the gaming brands, but like was that an intentional thing?
Absolutely,
or did you just get lucky?
Well, no, I think it's absolutely intentional, and definitely luck is involved too. So a big part of it was recognizing that we were tired of, so we had launched these 4 games within like 2 years or so. And these were smaller, strictly mobile titles. And doing the run-up every single time to launch was always so harrowing, because you're like, we're talking to Google, we're like, are we gonna get a feature? And they're like, I don't know, maybe. And then, we don't have money to spend on ads, so we're like,
You and I both know that's not how that happened on Crashland.
Well, not
Am
on
I gonna get a
Crashland, but
feature?
Yeah, Crashland
Yes.
went well.
Yes,
But yeah,
you
so the previous 4, not so much. So a big part of that then was just saying, like, how can we take a single player coming into Crashlands or into Flop Rocket, one of our other games, and how can we get them excited about the breadth of all the rest of our games? So all of our games actually take place in the same universe. They have the same art style across all of them, no matter what the genre is, and they hop around genres all over the place, from like things that make you want to snap your phone in half to Crashlands, which is like a 60-hour RPG. So a big part of it was, this really intentional, how do we get someone to come in and then stay with us as a team, as opposed to just saying like, oh, I really like that game, I have no idea who made it, and I don't care.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we're almost out of time here, and I really want to know, like, obviously you and your brothers have a particular talent of that kind of community building effort around the podcast, and there's like charisma and personality happening there, and not all of us are blessed with that.
Sure.
So how can you, as a very small, resource-limited team, build a community in different ways?
Yeah, honestly, I think the highest leverage way to do it is through something like a newsletter. Okay. A lot of people, especially if you're an indie or you just like making games, a lot of people are more introverted by nature. And I do actually consider myself an introvert. I'm just good at talking when I need to. But I think everybody usually has the ability to write pretty effectively, and you should actually develop that skill. And that's something that you can do sort of on your own time without the pressure of an instant response. Yeah. And those email newsletters are honestly so phenomenal. I know there's a talk by Chris Zakowski about this exact topic, I think tomorrow. Which is all about how to build an email list and then use it really effectively. And it's one of those things that for some reason people ignore, kind of like the user acquisition side on the indies, and it can help you so much, even if it's just like 2,000 people, or even like we started ours with 13 people. So, it takes a little bit, and there you go.
Do you guys do any like incentivization? So in the actual games themselves, you're like, get this cool thing. And
that's where essentially the cloud saving, like all those additional features come from. And we do
so
cross
it's all packaged together.
All packaged together. We do cross game unlocks and stuff too. So if you beat a boss in one of our games, it'll unlock a quest line in Crashlands while you're playing, as long as you're on the same account. So all sorts of crazy tech stuff like that.
That's cool.
That's awesome. So we're going to end on that note. Thanks, guys. This is like huge gems of wisdom you're able to share with this audience. And thank you so much. Join Mike's talk tomorrow. And next up, we have Serena and Moonlit, who's going to take you on monetization adventures. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Serena, and I'm a Google Play BD based out of Beijing. We do fully overseas, so no rumors here. Today, me and my colleague Moonlit will be discussing on why revenue diversification is a must. We'll be going over the following agenda, starting from why diversification is important, followed by how Legendary and Kongregate were able to succeed with diversifying their revenue, and finally, we'll be focusing on how Google products aim to help you successfully adopt different business strategies. To start, why diversify? In the last few years, we've seen the emergence and success of genre-mashing titles. For example, we have DH Games' Idle Heroes, which combines the RPG gameplay with idle clicker assets. And we also have Pixelberry's Choices, which combines the player's love of storybooks with the ability to control the overall narrative. The genre-mashing trend therefore opens up more way of revenue diversification and innovation. Multiple genres allow for additional business models model combinations of IAPs, ads, and subscriptions. In addition to genre matching titles in the real world, when we're trying to access a very diversified and good stock portfolio, it's important to not place all of your eggs in one basket. And therefore, this helps you diminish your overall risk. What better way to back this up? Well, we've plotted all of our top grossing titles on the chart that you see on your left and right. On the x-axis, we can see the percentage of revenue from the top 5% buyers, which means the more you're leaning toward your right, the more you're dependent on your revenue from your top HVUs. On the y-axis, we see the buyer reactivation rate, which is essentially how likely your players will come back after they're already churned. You can see an overall negative correlation here, which means that the more you're squeezing out of your buyers, the more they're less likely able to come back after they've already churned from the game. So we have a really nice little sweet spot marked by the yellow star, where it follows the philosophy that you would rather have everyone spend $1 in your game than to depend on that one person who's going to spend 100. So where can you start? We would like to encourage you to challenge the conventional thinking that we have. On this graph, we can see that essentially the lower the engagement and lower skill needed from your partner, from your players, you're more or less likely going to be expecting an ads-only game. On the other side of the spectrum, if you're expecting higher engagement and higher skill, you're more or less likely expecting an IAP and subscription-based game. What is important is to challenge this overall conventional thinking that the genre of your game should necessarily determine your monetization strategy in order to evolve your game economy with the evolution of games today. So just like the evolving game genres, gamers today have also evolved. So we're not talking about the 3 or 4 years ago players who are not really familiar with one of the strategies that are already present. So therefore, whether you have a casual or a mid-core game, a singular or a multi-genre title, you're still able to succeed with serving different monetization strategies to this new mature audience. So now let's take a look at how Legendary does it. Headquartered in Germany, Legendary is a hyper-casual and casual game developer founded in 2016 with their heart of development in Belarus. Starting all the way from the design stage of their game development, Legendary has always been very experimental with the way that they do their in-game revenue diversification. We're going to take a look at the 2 games we have right here. We have Tank Stars, which is a hyper-casual game, and we have Legendary Party Masters, which is an idle clicker and story-based game. I'll be using these 2 titles as examples of how Legendary has challenged the traditional gaming revenue strategy. At the designing stage of their games, all 3 monetizations have already been considered at the initial planning stage. From the start, Legendary is keen on combining all 3 methods that are possible in order to strive for the most optimized results. Therefore, when looking at their current titles, regardless of how the title actually is, you'll see different combinations of rewarded ads, IAP, and subscriptions. How do they do this? To Legendary, games is an art form, just like music and just like movies. Therefore, creating a great gaming experience for their partner is their #1 priority and is therefore the most important. With this in mind, they put their main focus on adding a lot of in-game assets for their players to consume. The focus of having really good content and in-depth content therefore leads to a more stable revenue stream. How is this content distributed? We're split into 2 different focuses. One, they are allowing the game currency to be distributed and consumed in any way the player chooses. So whether you're a payer or a non-payer, you're able to choose how you would like to experience your game. And 2, gamers' loyalty. We were talking about LTV with Nacho and therefore the importance of keeping your players inside your game through a lot of live ops opportunities and events. So honing in on game currency. In Tank Stars, which is a hyper-casual game, you can see that all 3 methods are used in this title. How they use it is IAP, you're able to buy different buy different tanks and weapons and upgrade your in-game assets. And subscriptions will do almost exactly the same, but adding a little more for the subscriber. In this game in particular, actually the subscriber revenue takes up 46% of the total IAP revenue. Of course, we can't forget rewarded ads. And rewarded ads, although the players are not willing to contribute monetarily directly, they're still able to contribute their time. So what they've done is to set up a gacha system where the player is able to choose based on gacha to see if they can actually pick out and draw the tanks that are available through IAP or subscription. So in Party Masters, which is a story-based idle clicker game, all three monetization models are also utilized, and each ties very closely back to the storyline. For example, players are able to help their in-game protagonists through watching ads for character accessories and upgrades, or purchase gems through IAPs to purchase similar items, or players can get both needed currencies through becoming their Diamond members and subscribing. By focusing on creating a good storyline for their players, Legendary is able to split their in-game currencies and content among different variations of revenue models. So in terms of creating gamer loyalty, Legendary stresses the importance of having a consistent revenue heartbeat with live ops. Having a casual/hyper-casual game did not roll out the importance of keeping a really good live ops system in their game. As you can see from the graph that they've shared with us, Legendary was able to utilize one live ops event to re-engage the players who had installed their games 3 to 4 months ago previously. How they do this is split into two types. So we have the free holiday content and events that follows the holiday calendar, or we have the paid new modes that are available. For the non-paying buyers, free live ops events are used to re-engage the players, new or old, into letting them know that the developer still cares about the player. So fresh new content is being pumped into the game in general, just to create more excitement for the player. But even though this is a free event, it doesn't roll out the possibility of increasing revenue throughout this live ops event. We can see from what they've shared with us that the blue bar represents all the game packs that are present regularly, and the red bars are the effects of the revenue during this free live ops event. So it's also a good way to be able to create new paying buyers. So of course, paid content, therefore, is the most direct way to stimulate your overall monetization for your players, new and old. So this is the method where you can also create the excitement, but at the same time, create more places where people are able to engage and become a new buyer. Overall, the live ops account for 40% of their total IAP revenue. So as Legendary has shown through their games, having more content creates more possibility of adding different revenue streams. With the flexibility of allowing players to choose how they can consume in-game content, as well as creating live ops events to ensure player engagement and re-engagement, Legendary was able to see a healthy revenue stream regardless of the different genres they have. Placing their focus on gaming experience and setting up that in-depth content has also allowed Legendary to use multiple business models that are complementary but also substitutable for their players to choose how they like to experience their game. And with this, I'd like to introduce my colleague Moonlit, who will be sharing with you how a mid-core game was able to find success with rewarded ads.
Thank you, Serena. Hello, everyone. My name is Moonlit. I'm a business development manager at Google Play Games, based in Mountain View. Today, I'll be sharing with you the story of Kongregate, how they're able to boost their revenue by leveraging ad monetization across their portfolio. Kongregate is an indie publisher based in San Francisco. They have a portfolio of games of diverse genres, ranging from casual to mid-core. Diversifying their business model is their company-wide strategy, as they believe it's a great way to drive substantial incremental revenue without much cannibalization. When we say ad monetization, we think about casual and hyper-casual. No wonder, as most of these games on the market do rely heavily on ads for revenue. But what about deeper, mid-core games? Would ads work for these genres as well? Kongregate decided to find out. Through experimentation with an open mind, they found that with the right design principles, ads actually work really well for mid-core genre as well. Of course, this does not mean that ads is now the primary source of revenue. But as you will see in the next few minutes, the revenue, as well as engagement gain, could be substantial. Now, before I dive into the how, in true Google and Kongregate fashion, let's look at the data. Across Kongregate's portfolio of games, they've seen that ads have boosted their annual revenue by 20 to 30%. And this is without IAP cannibalization. Moreover, depending on the game, ads can contribute up to 10 to 70% of total revenue. So how do they do it? Two things. First, Kongregate launched all new games with ad integration since Q4 2016. And two, this growth is a result of intentional ad integration and deliberate ad management. Now let's double click on the ad revenue. They found that rewarded ads has a larger market share on mobile, which is 70 to 80% of all ads revenue. Therefore, rewarded ads is what we'll focus on in the next case study. Now, regardless of genre, there are 4 design principles when you implement rewarded ads. First, for the ads to be part of players' habit, tie the entry points into the core loop of the gameplay. Second, grant rewards that's meaningful and help players progress. Make sure the rewards also scale as players advance in-game. For example, if you only give out a fixed amount of currency, and as players level up, this amount will quickly become negligible as players level up and in-game inflation kicks in. Third, in terms of placement, the ads should be accessible for everyone, ideally on the main homepage, but ensure it's not intrusive or detrimental to the user experience. And last, make sure that the experience itself is also fun. Inject some humor and delight by tying it into the fiction of the game world. The case study we'll look at together is from Animation Throwdown. It's a mid-core card-collecting battler game that Kongregate launched in September of 2016. Together, we'll walk through 3 different ad units that have been added in the game over time, as well as their impact and the KPIs. The first ad unit was available at launch. It's a standard ad unit that provided better rewards for all battles played while the bonus is active. Let's tie this back to design principles. First, the ad unit reinforces the core game mechanic of battles. Second, the reward also scales. Because it's applied as a percentage, thus it remains relevant regardless of which level the player is at. And third, this ad design also encourages repeated engagement, as players can stack the bonuses by watching multiple ads. The second ad unit was inspired by the game Burrito Bison, which is a casual game in Kongregate's portfolio. Burrito Bison added an ad unit that was very, very successful, called the Piñata. As the name implies, you reward something by randomly drop the rewards. Now, after seeing the great results from Burrito Bison, the Animation Throwdown team also implemented this in their own game by randomly dropping locked ad crates as battle rewards, which can be unlocked by watching an ad. Now, let's tie this back to the design principles. First, this ad, once again, reinforces the core game mechanic of battles. Second, because the reward is randomized, it can scale depending on what level the player is. The third ad unit was added more recently. Now, one of the core game mechanics in this game is allowing players to combine 2 cards into a more powerful combo. But this combo has to first be discovered through research. Knowing that players engage with the research slots every day, the Animation Throwdown team added a 3rd research slot that is only activated through ads. They also set a clear expectation that to activate the research timer, players will have to tap a button to start watching an ad. Now tie this back to the design principles. First, once again, this reinforces the core game mechanic of deck improvement. Second, in terms of placement, the ad research slot is prominently placed next to the other research slots, but again, the user initiates ad viewing experience. Now, let's look at the KPIs and impact. The two most important metrics for rewarded ads is first, the number of ads viewed per player per day. As you can see on this graph here, from the original reward bonus, which is the blue bar, to adding the second ad crate, the green bar, they were able to increase the number of ads viewed per player per day to the target of 7 and remain stable since. But you might be wondering, why didn't it grow more with a third ad unit added, which is the research slot with the yellow bars? Congregate told me that it's actually very important to keep this metric steady and balanced as to not overwhelm the players. Therefore, they designed the ad experience such that the reward and benefits is optimized when players watch between 6 and 8 ads per day. The second important metric is ad engagement. Well, how many players watched ads as a percentage of DAU? This is the metric to maximize within each game. Strong engagement comes from diversifying the ad units, thus to increase the percentage of players engaging. And this is why Congregate designed 3 ad units that we just covered earlier. Looking at this graph, you see that adding 2 more ad units increased the ad engagement number to 60%, which is their target. Even though Animation Throwdown is a mid-core game, this number is actually on par with other casual games. Now, if you're thinking about diversifying your business model with rewarded ads or in-game subscriptions, I have some exciting updates to share with you from our product team. I'll share new features in 2 categories. 3 will help you find new buyers, and 3 more to help you retain them. Now, some of these features are only available through closed beta right now, so feel free to take a picture of the slides when there are links to the early access entry forms available. Or you can stay in touch by following the Google Play newsletter. First, on features that help you find new buyers. Google Play has partnered with AdMob to make it even easier for game developers like you to integrate rewarded ads in your games. Introducing the rewarded product, which is Google Play's offering of rewarded ads. You can try in your games without any additional SDK integration. You can find it in your Play console today, and it is now available. It's open beta. Now, for those of you who are already using AdMob, this remains to be the most fully featured way offered by Google to integrate rewarded ads in your game. More on this after this session. The second new feature around new buyer acquisition is about subscriptions. This feature is available in closed beta right now, and that's the link. Subscribe, then install. It's a new feature we're testing that will allow your players to subscribe directly in your Play Store listing page, while the game gets auto-installed in the background. The third and the latest and greatest of new subscription feature is allowing your future buyer to start their subscription by directly redeeming a gift card or a promo code. This feature is also available through closed beta. Now, onto new features that will help you retain buyers by reducing voluntary cancellation. First, in the cancellation flow, we now allow players to pause as an alternative to canceling. You can see here that players have the option to pause for 1, 2, or 3 months. Pause will be publicly available in a few months. Now, if they still decide to cancel, this might be a good time to create a win-back offer that lets your players continue their subscription at a discount. This feature is available in closed beta. Last, if they still decide to cancel, understanding why is a good win-back strategy. Last year, we launched the cancellation survey to provide you with the insights of why your subscribers are leaving. We found that 74% of users chose to respond, with 10% of them actually give a free-form answer. The survey results are available through API query now, and these insights will be added to your Play console soon. Now, as you think about the takeaways for this session, I have 3 wishes for you. First, I hope you found the inspiration to reinvent your monetization strategy. Second, I hope you believe now that your past doesn't necessarily dictate your future. And last, I hope you will all go back to your teams and ask, how can we diversify more? I am excited to see how you will innovate and defy conventional thinking. Would it be through business model diversification, regardless of genre, or maybe more? Thank you, everyone. Next, I'd like to introduce Duke, Director of Product from AdMob, to go deeper on ads.
It's amazing to see the science and the art going into rewarded ads, and I think about the journey that we've been through. So I need to do a statistical question. How many of you are fans, like raging fans of ads? Okay, I'm seeing 80, 90%. I'm seeing 110%. Okay, it's amazing, remarkable. I am Duke. I lead mobile app monetization for the ads. It's been quite an amazing period of time. So for those of you who didn't put your hands up, we're going to talk through a couple pro tips here. I'm going to see how many hearts and minds I can shift to embracing it. And the truth is, when done right, it can actually improve some experiences, which is something that we're pretty amazed to find that. You saw some of those experiences come before, and really it's around psychology. Today I'm going to talk about 3 tips that are very focused on this evolution of the industry and what we're seeing out there. And at the end, we're going to check back. We're going to do another statistical sample here and see if we've shifted that from 80% to the rest of the 100% of you. All right, so first tip is about building this into game design. You saw some of that in the sessions we just had. And if you do this right, you can actually make users feel good. They're getting something. They're earning something extra that they otherwise felt like they could not have gotten. And that's terrific. But you could also build revenue streams. Now, we saw this happening. It's been going. You saw the experiences. So we put our heads together, and we really thought about, like, how can we make this easier for you? And right now, we have a huge base on AdMob and Ad Manager. And we said, well, for those of you not on there, what can we do to get this into your hands as fast as possible? And we're just watching this chart grow, and we said, who else can we reach out to? And there's a whole segment of developers who really have been IAP focused. And I think back 2 years ago, where a lot of those discussions were really don't touch the app. IAP is everything. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this. This has shifted remarkably in the last 2 years. I mean, this has been really remarkable. So the first step we've taken, and you just heard this before, was getting rewarded ads in Play. So this means if you're already offering IAP, you can do it very quickly. So I'm going to show you, here's a screenshot of the Play console. And you'll notice the tab all on the right. So there are these rewarded products. And one of those rewarded products is rewarded ads. So this is as simple as, instead of choosing an IAP price, you choose an ad. And the ad is the cost. That's the cost that the user is paying here. And it's that simple. Okay? So that's awfully darn easy. We're really excited to see how this is going. We've been running it through some beta programs, and now we're announcing the open beta right now. Okay, let's move on. Number 2, so supplementing IAP revenue with ads. So what we're seeing is developers who use this combination. Yes, the numbers are all going the right direction. You add ads. And again, this is a shift of thinking from just IAP or just ads to go, how can we put these two things together And rewarded ads, again, is one of these areas where it just changes the mold. And if you think about initially, it was about banners or native, find the space, and interstitials, you put them between. And rewarded has really just been something different because it's that opt-in. It's that I choose to do something. I choose to do this. So here's Cookie Jam. He's just a really terrific developer. And they've really put these two things together. They put these boosters in. And over long term, so here's the remarkable part. They're using the free rewarded experience to drive an experience that then people say, I like that experience so much, I'm actually willing to pay for it. Okay, so they're seeing an uplift in IAP with rewarded ads being the trial way in. And they're also seeing the users who never would have made any money for them, which, by the way, in most of these games tends to be an awful lot of those users. They're watching rewarded ads, which means they're generating advertising revenue. So this is where this breaks the mold. Like this is not a pure, show ads, user experience declines. That's not necessarily what's happening here. In fact, we're seeing a drive towards better monetization, and that's just really terrific to see. Okay, so let's move on to tip number 3. So non-spending players. So this has been the really interesting piece, and I'll go back to 2 years ago. I was talking to a number of different publishers, developers around, hey, we know you make a lot of money on IAP, but really, like, how much? And we heard things from like 1%, 3%, 5%, 10%. That's the number of users in my base, or the percentage where I'm making money. It turns out, the rest, so sometimes that's 80%, 90% more, are not making money. That's a net cost for your app, for your service. If you're on servers, they're sort of costing money. In some places that makes sense because of networks and such. But in many cases, they're sitting there going, I really want to monetize that group, but I want to take no chances on this other group of users who are paying me money. I just can't afford to take the risk there. So again, we went to work here, and we thought, how can we do this? So what if there was a way to segment out smartly the users who are going to spend and don't show them this ads experience from the users who are almost certainly not going to purchase? Okay? And those users, we want to go ahead and put a personalized ad profile, and that's how we'll make money off of them. And it's that simple. So here's the example. You've got the game on the left, mission overview, and we segment this. We use our machine learning to figure out what's going on here. Who's the spender? Okay, they follow the path up at the top. Who's not the spender? Unlikely to make a purchase, very unlikely to make a purchase. We send them through. We give them ad experience. So we've tailored this to the profile of the consumer and how they prefer to help pay for the app. Okay. So this is pretty big news, because now we're taking a risk-free approach to generating more revenue here. So it's first step. It's really easy to do this. When you go create an interstitial ad unit right now, this is what we've announced we're launching, there's a box that says Smart Segmentation. It's that simple. And then what we do is we go ahead and look. We use our machines to go figure out who are the spenders, the likely spenders, who are the unlikely spenders, and then we just start doing this for you automatically. It's as simple as a checkbox. Okay? And we've seen, here's an example of seeing 30% increase on the ads revenue side, because they've been introducing ad units that they before were afraid to introduce because it might have impacts on IAP. Okay. So that's what I've got. They're pretty quick and tactical, but can make a huge difference. And I actually find these things just so revolutionary to where we were 1 year, 2 years ago. So number one was really think about how this rewarded fits into the game and the psychology. You heard that through the sessions before. You can go to the rewarded play option, and you can get that design and placement up like immediately. You can test out what things work, what things don't work without a lot of integration. Number two, you can supplement that IAP revenue with the rewarded, and probably grow your IAP if you do this right. And then number three, our smart segmentation offering now, it's a checkbox. It's that simple. Don't put any of your IAP at risk. And you have a chance to monetize 90+% of your users who aren't spending. So it's a real win. So That said, I need to do another statistical sample here. Show of hands, who now is a raging fan of ads? Okay. Yes? Yeah, this is overwhelming. I feel the love. This is great. In the art insights, I think it just comes in to really talk about how successful this whole area has been, and the more we can put these tools and these products in your hands to make money, that just the happier it really makes the team here. So thank you all for that.